Good evening, everybody. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone is okay, and as always, hope everybody can hear me. Obviously, you can see there's a poll in the chat. Unfortunately, you can only have 4 options. So when it was who is crypto's biggest offender, obviously linking it to the title of the stream, really I can only put 3 and then another, but I mean, you could have added so many more. I mean, crypto influencers, whether you just want it as one of them or a whole bunch. But please, if you've got any thoughts on that, please feel free to drop it into the chat, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. So tonight we've got so much to cover. Honestly, it's going to have to be a bit more focused for me than usual. The whole point of the stream, from the clip, the picture, there's a lot of just bad characters from 2022 have had some interesting interactions with regulatory bodies. So we're going to run through that. That's going to take up quite a lot of the news section. We're going to have a look at, I've had a couple of questions, so we'll pick up some of those. We're going to have a look at BTC and altcoin dominance again, following on from a video that Bijan posted. We'll have a look at what's happening with Bitcoin, things to be mindful of in the future, and especially some things that may seem far away, but actually they're not. Then we'll have a look at price action, as we usually do. And there is a research token today. It's called Akash, AKT. So we will also go through that. With that, I've actually written pretty much a script word for word. I'm going to try and stick to that because I need to keep tonight short, not like what I'm doing right now, which is just mind bumbling on. So without any further ado, we will jump straight in. Okay, so charts in front of us, we can see actually in the last sort of 15 minutes, can't find my cursor, it looks like BTC's had a little bit of a pump. So we'll have a look at that later on. I don't think it's anything to get too excited about just yet. We haven't even touched 1%. But what is interesting is if you look on the right-hand side of the chart, you can see that altcoins seem to be pumping a little bit harder. So there's definitely a question about Bitcoin dominance and where that's going at the moment. So pretty timely to be discussing that. I think it's the 3rd week in the row, though. So hopefully everyone's getting their heads around BTC dominance. US dollar index continuing to fall at the moment. 102 is pretty much a level we need to understand. Certainly I say no lower, but we get down sort of 101. That's some previous recent, I was going to say price support, but you know what I mean. Just support down there. It's not surprising that it's still taking a bit of a kick in. It's had quite a bit of bad news in terms of there's been a lot of countries that are signing deals over the last week or so where they're going to sort of trade their oil in native currencies, etc., moving away from the US. So that's likely to have an impact on that. Euro's also rising at the moment, which is having an impact on pushing the dollar down. Ethereum's moving up as it would with BTC, although we do note that that candle has pretty much recovered yesterday. It's a daily. Pretty much recovered all of yesterday's losses there. So interesting to see how the rest of them are doing. But the S&P 500 is on another red day. So still a lot of uncertainty in and around there. And it's just, can't seem to break above, can't get a break above 4,000. So again, we will have a look at it. Hi there, Chris. Again, any questions that you have, anything like that, just drop it in the chat. I will obviously look through it and try and review. But if you've got any other questions outside of what we're talking about, please feel free to dump them in there. So what are we going to talk about first? Okay. Before we go into the news, obviously this was the thumbnail for today, the offenders. Just to sort of, in case some of you aren't aware who we've got. Lindsay Lohan, she was named, and we're going to talk about why later on. CZ, Justin Sun, Jake Paul, Coinbase, and Kwon. I think it's Kwon. I always call him Do1, but Kwon. And now, this is how quickly things move in crypto, because I just want to show you, this was the thumbnail I was going to do till yesterday, which was just because we heard about the Kwon arrest and it was quite interesting. But then obviously the Binance stuff dropped. I thought actually we might get there. But Kwon, some of us may have forgotten about, because it's been about a year, just under a year since the collapse of Terra Luna. So some of us may not have even been around in the group there. But we're going to go not over what happened, but exactly why he's back in the news again today. But before we do all that, let's start with a little bit of positive news. I mean, It's been a while since we've heard anything positive come out of MicroStrategy, but actually they've had not too bad couple of weeks, couple of months. Two pieces of news was announced at the beginning of this week. First one was a bit of savvy business done by MicroStrategy. So they took out a loan from Silvergate, obviously no longer around at the moment. So they were negotiating with their I don't know, liquidators or whatever the term is over there. And it was a 205, I thought it was 210, but the article says 205 million from Silvergate Bank last March. They have opted for an early repayment and only had to pay only 165 million back. So a nice sort of 20% saving there from Silvergate, which, you know, we're talking around about 45 million, because I think they paid back 165 million back there. So well played to them. What did they go and do? Well, actually, they've been buying. And obviously, because they are a company, they are obligated to make reporting to the SEC, so we can follow their purchases. Now, we can't follow them in real time, just retrospectively, but they have announced, so it's down here, in addition, MicroStrategy said it purchased another 604, what is wrong with me today? 6,455 BTC over the past 5 weeks, and that date is spanning from the 16th of February to the 21st of March. Now, for any of you that have been in the market long enough, you actually kind of know that this is a bit of a worrying sign for us crypto enthusiasts, because it always seems to coincide whenever they announce that they've gone and bought, that is a local top. So I'm not saying this is a bulletproof crypto strategy to use, but it certainly might be something that you just need to consider if you're thinking about aping in right now. Yep, so we go back, it's sort of cutting between the two articles here, but the loan paid off is 161 million. So they've saved 44 million actually from that. So well played to them. And just think, actually, it wasn't that long ago, everyone was talking about how MicroStrategy is going to go bust and they're going under. But you know what? They keep on buying, and when price starts to climb back up, they're going to be laughing. And actually, you can see now they hold 130. This is here, down here. 138, well, nearly 139,000 Bitcoin, and an average price of 29,800. So let's just call it 30,000 for cash. So they're pretty close to breaking back even again. So interesting where they've sort of gone with that and taken advantage of buying the dip there. So well played to them. It's no longer Michael Saylor to say well played to. I can't remember who the new CEO is, but generally well played to MicroStrategy. Okay, moving on. Right, I mean, last week we had FOMC, and if you remember, that was announced on Wednesday. I'm not going to bother talking about it. But immediately on the heels of the announcement of the FOMC, the SEC must have just had, I don't know, like an automatic send bot, just send out, you know, press releases and what's the term I'm looking for? Wells notices and everything else. Because in the space of one day, we actually had 3 interesting articles come about. So first one that seemed to land was that Tron founder Justin Sun was going to be sued by the SEC for market manipulation charges. We'll go through that in a second. Then very quickly afterwards, Jake Paul and a few other celebrities were also going to be charged by the SEC, or had been charged by the SEC. I can't remember which way around it is. Jake Paul has a couple of additional elements to the charge, but the rest of the celebrities were being charged for effectively not disclosing that they were being paid to do an advert for Justin Sun's Tron, and I think BTT. And then, you know, because you know what, we need to do something else. So we then found out that Coinbase had been sent a Wells notice from the SEC. Now, that term sounds familiar. It's because Paxos had one of those about a month ago. And it's a bit of an interesting one. It's not a formal charge. It's, how can I put it? It's effectively an advance notice that they may look to proceed with formal charges against said company. Now, because it is not formally registered yet, we're not necessarily too sure what it's about. But what is quite interesting is Coinbase acknowledged that, and they immediately stopped staking rewards for Algorand, I think it was. Someone might correct me in chat. Chat seems pretty quiet. I'm worried now you can't hear me, but hopefully you can, because I'm sure someone would have said something by now. So let's have a look at some of those and try and pick through the bones. As I say, it all landed on the same day, so it's pretty interesting. But yeah, we talked about it. Justin Sun, our Captain America on the thumbnail, sued by the SEC on securities market manipulation charges. So they've alleged that TRX and BTT are unregistered securities. No surprise there, because everything seems to be unregistered securities, and claim that Justin Sun was creating an extensive wash trading program to boost their volumes. SEC said in a press release that it was suing Sun, the Tron Foundation, the BitTorrent Foundation, and BitTorrent, now known as Rainberry, didn't know that, over the sale of TRX, Tronix, and BitTorrent tokens, which the regulator described as unregistered crypto asset securities. The regulator further alleged the defendants fraudulently manipulated TRX's secondary market for extensive wash trading. So quite a bit of charges against him at the moment, and we'll obviously see how that plays out. Now, Tron price dumped immediately. It says a bit further down there, it's about 13% on the announcement. I think it actually recovered a little bit over the week, but for a couple of days it did fall quite hard. And so, yeah, there was, there's going to be further implications to that. What it's done with USDD, I don't necessarily follow because I don't really care about that stablecoin, so I've not even looked into it. I know Simon does look at that relationship, so potentially he might mention that on Thursday's call. It kind of talks about the next one down here, but I'll go through it in the next article, I think. Oh no, I'll go through it on this one first because this is it. So the agency is also suing. So these are the people. So Lindsay Lohan, Jake Paul, Soulja Boy, Il Yachty, Neo, Akon, and Michelle Mason. I don't know who all of those are, I'll be honest, on illegally touting charges for their roles allegedly promoting TRX and BTT without disclosing that they were paid to do so. So I understand it came out in later articles that they're all being fined around about $40,000. Now, again, we've seen that stance that's happened with Kim Kardashian and a few others. I think generally they've all accepted those charges, and so I don't think there's anything more to that. It's just that it just sort of flew out all at the same time. But then we move on to Jake Paul. So Paul and other celebrities, this is where I probably got more of the detail from, did not disclose they were paid to promote Sun's linked assets. And we get this all the time. And I think it's still kind of a blight, celebrities. We always see celebrities endorsing cryptos, failed attempts with Coinbase or FTX or whatever you have with it. It's going to be there. Hopefully, when we get people that actually believe in the space, then they'll actually do a bit more research and be happy to claim that. But for any of you that understand social media now, you have to declare just about everything, especially if you are being paid by a company. And I don't know what you necessarily have to do, but I see a lot of them where they just put hashtag ad or give a sort of a 5-second spiel to explain it. In this instance, that did not happen. So internet personality, I love it. That's all he's famous for, apparently. Jake Paul sued by the SEC over alleged promotion of cryptocurrencies tied to Justin Sun, illegally touting the currencies. We kind of discussed that here. According to press release, it's not the first time crypto has gone under scrutiny. He was sued in February for allegedly participating in a pump and dump scheme for SafeMoon. And then for those of you that follow CoffeeZilla, his brother, which I'm not sure if Jake Paul is actually a fully fledged partner, but his brother Logan Paul is in that Crypto Zoo scandal that's been going around. So yeah, busy day there. And then, as I say, not to want to feel left out because we need to go after an exchange. SEC have shot a warning salvo towards Coinbase for pursuing enforcement action over securities violations. So if we just scroll down to the meat of it. Coinbase declared the SEC alleged the US-based company may be operating in violation of security laws in running of its exchange and staking services. So that's about as detailed as we really got. The regulator targeted Coinbase with the so-called Wells notice that informs the business that the agency is planning a future action that could include injunction or cease and desist, without specifying exactly what activity is found. If needed, we welcome a legal process to provide the clarity that we have been advocating for and to demonstrate that the SEC simply has not been fair or reasonable when it comes to its engagement on digital assets. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later on. Until then, it's business as usual. Now, Coinbase's stock price did fall quite heavily on the announcement of that. That's what you expect. But until we actually have detailed information, we need to understand it. I mentioned this when we were talking about Paxos. It's no guarantee that they will go through with it. although history suggests that around about 80% of Wells notices do then turn into a suing of some sort. So highly likely that we will see some further action, and we'll just keep our eyes peeled for any response from the SEC as to what this is, or the fact that they are actually going to go through with it. Okay. And then we get on to Kwon. So Kwon, for those of you that aren't aware, was the founder of the Terra Luna, or the Terraform Labs. Luna is the algorithmic stablecoin that was attached with that. And after the collapse of Terra, he stuck around for about a week or so just to provide a tiny bit of hope to all the Terra and Luna holders via a shit ton of tweets. But then that's it, he legged it. And he hadn't been found. He'd been on the run for just about a year. However, he turned up in Montenegro at Podgorica Airport on falsified documents. So they finally found him. And he might have been on the run, but he certainly wasn't running by the picture he looked. I think he was trying to hide his identity by following my footsteps by eating too much. So good on him for that there. But Montenegrin police have detained a person suspected of being one of the most wanted fugitives, South Korean citizen Kwon, co-founder and CEO of Singapore-based Terraform Labs. Kwon has been the target of several investigations and was even on Interpol's Red Notice. So the Red Notice, it's like the most, almost like the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. So after stablecoin Terra USD, UST, and its 40 billion ecosystem imploded last year. So that was the May crash. And if you think about it, the reason I titled it the first offender is everyone that fell after it blamed the collapse of Terra as to why they fell, because they all were degenerates and just put their money into the 20% yield. But anyway, so he's now been arrested. And what's going to be interesting is there's a bit of a fight, because there's a lot of people who want to speak to him. So he's South Korean, so the South Koreans want him extradited back to there so they can interview him first. The company, it was based out of Singapore, so they want him, so they can interview him, and the Americans want him as well. So I'm not sure where that stands, and look in the chat, see if anyone's put it. No. So we'll just have to wait and see where he goes to, but it has been confirmed that he has been arrested. I was hoping there was a picture of his arrest, but I don't have one. No, not in either of those two articles. So that all happened on Wednesday and Thursday. And I tell you, it's never a quiet week in crypto, is it really? But actually, we then got a bit of news yesterday, which again shook the markets quite considerably. And that was, you might be, forgiven for not knowing all of your United States regulatory body acronyms here. But the CFTC, which is the US Commodities Future Trading Commission, they issued notification that they are suing both Binance and Binance's CEO, as well as, I can't remember who it is now, I'll find him when we read through the article, but also another member of staff, over willful evasion of US laws, unregistered crypto derivatives products. So this one's a bit of an interesting one. It's a long article here. It's relatively new, so I'm going to try and cover all of the articles there. So the CFTC alleged Binance offered unregistered crypto derivative products and directed US customers to evade compliance controls through the use of VPN. So we know that it's even in the UK, there are certain products in Binance that are restricted depending on where you live in the world. So things like perpetual trading, in their staking or the earn program, as they call it, they're not allowed to do it. What the CFTC, I was about to call the SEC then, CFTC are alleging is that Binance didn't do enough to stop that practice, and actually may have even been complicit in providing ways for them to evade the controls that they were supposedly looking to enforce. Gotten down a bit further. So the CFTC sued crypto exchange Binance and found Changpeng Zhao, or CZ as he's known, on Monday on allegations of the company knowingly offering unregistered crypto derivatives. We mentioned that. The lawsuit, which if you're interested in it, this is the lawsuit, 74 pages, so we won't necessarily go through it all, but public records, so you can find it and have a read through if that thing tickles you. The lawsuit filed in the United States District Court of the Northern District of Illinois. Wow, they love to just drag those things out. Was on Monday alleged that Binance operated a derivatives trading operation in the US, offering trades for cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, Tether, and Binance USD, which the suit referred to as commodities. This is the thing that we're going to talk about a little bit afterwards. So I'll circle back to that, but just remember the Commodities Futures Trading Commission are claiming that those are all commodities, which you'd expect because they're the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, not the securities. The suit also alleged that the company under CZ's leadership directed its employees to spoof their locations through the use of VPNs. The CFTC charged Binance with violating laws around offering futures transactions and illegal off-exchange commodity options, but also failing to register as a futures commissions merchant and designated contract maker or swap execution facility, poorly advising its business, not implementing KYC or AML processes, and having a poor anti-evasion program. So there's a hell of a lot of charges that they've sent through. Unsurprisingly, once it happened, we actually saw that the market did drop by about $1,000 for BTC, and BNB plunged. I mean, it wasn't $1,000, but it says here percentage about 6%, it's about double what BTC ended up falling. Is there anything? Yeah. So for me, we'll have to wait and see where this has come. Now, CZ very quickly came out and just basically posted a tweet saying "for," which is his way of saying FUD. And I suppose, depending on what their evidence is, and I think I've seen some maybe suggest they are in a bit of trouble, but it's hard to prove that it's actually that, especially in this day and age. Yeah, depending on what the is. For me, Binance, I think they'll just be like, look, we have provided these systems. We advise anyone that's based in the US that they can't use Binance, they have to use Binance US. I think they actually go on to explain this, but basically they go on to explain, I'll find it in a minute, that if you register with a United States address, you are automatically banned. If you use a United States bank account, then they also can track that and it'll be banned. If your IP address is in the United States, etc., etc. So they'll probably come out with a hell of a lot of ways of where they have tried to do it and play the old ignorant card of, well, hey, look, we've tried our best. If they try and circumnavigating it using VPNs, then there's a very limited amount of what we can do because we can't really 100% confirm where that IP address comes from if it's via a VPN, etc., etc. So if all the other boxes align, so they don't use a US address, they don't use a US bank account, how are we to know? And if that's the case, maybe it's a bit of a storm in the teacup. But they, the CFTC are adamant that they actually have. It's not WhatsApp. What do they use? They use bugger. I can't remember what the app's called, but whatever it is, it says it somewhere. Here we go, internal chats. Right, we'll go here. The fine point at internal chats between Binance employees. So this is what CFTC is saying, including Samuel Lim. That was the other guy. He's a chief compliance officer. And it says, come on, I know it's here somewhere. Such a big article, I can't bloody find it. Here we go. Yeah. So they were implying that they were using this thing called the Signal app. So it's a bit like WhatsApp, but it automatically deletes any messages that you have sent. But they've said that they've actually got hold of these phones, including CZ's, so they can actually see the correspondence that's happened with them. I don't know how they got hold of it, but that's what they're claiming to be the case. So that might actually completely undermine everything that CZ is sort of coming out and saying. We'll just have to wait and try and determine if that is the case. But I want to get onto this next bit as well. I'm sorry if I'm skipping over this. But, you can be forgiven for thinking, well, wait a second. I thought we were dealing with the SEC here. We've never even heard of the CFTC. the SEC thinks that everything except for Bitcoin, BTC, is a security, and they've quite clearly come out and said that Bitcoin is actually classed as a commodity. So we go here. This was dated back June 28th, 2022. Gensler reiterates Bitcoin alone is a commodity. So he has come out and said Bitcoin's a commodity, everything else is a security. Well, I take you back to this, and I beg to differ, because now the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, they've classed Bitcoin under it, but then they've hit Ether, Litecoin, Tether, and BUSD as commodities as well. And a question I suppose we all need to know is, how are these people defining what cryptocurrencies are, and how are we expected to know how to behave and how to act if even the people that are enforcing the rules can't even make up their mind of what falls under what? So surely what would be more logical would for the CFTC and the SEC to finally agree what they determine as a security and what they determine as a commodity, let all of us know, and then we can go out with it. But this is causing some confusion. And so, everyone that thinks, oh, yeah, we're safe because Bitcoin's a commodity, everything else is an SEC. Well, the Commodity Future Trading Commission, they're saying different. Now, is it because we've never really heard them come out with anything up until now, so they feel like they need to do something and just get their names out there, so they're just going to list loads of things and just wait for the dust to settle and then just scale it all back and go Bitcoin? I have no idea. But it is very confusing to get through there. And this is, this is further amplified because we know when we're talking about stable coins, we always thought they were safe, but then the SEC came out in February for Paxos and they hit BUSD as a security with the Wells notice. So again, further reinforcing that the SEC believes BUSD at least is a security and not a commodity. So we've really got to try and understand where that is. Unfortunately, it's just creating uncertainty in the market. Typically, uncertainty is not necessarily good. As I say, we just now need to wait and determine how that is going to come about. The other thing I was going to mention, though, is if any of you have ever actually tried to look into Binance, there is some shady stuff there, potentially. Now, we're talking about a global company here with, offices spread across the world dealing with billions of dollars worth. So, my little tiny accountancy knowledge is never going to fully understand this. But Binance are not very forthcoming with internal information. You can rarely find who the organogram or the certainly the C-suite, so the chiefs of staff are. We know of like 2 people, and they're basically the founders. So we scroll down to their website. You think you'll be able to find that information somewhere. We've basically got CZ and Yi, 2 co-founders. No one else is really mentioned. We've got an advisory board which just lists 1 person per country. We don't actually know who the CTO is, who the CMO is, who the CFO is. They don't list that kind of stuff out. And then again, you go to, well, where are they actually based? And they don't have a global headquarters. As a matter of fact, they come out and say, we are headquartered in a lot of different countries, but we don't have one particular office. CZ himself even came out last year and said he's worked from home for the last 3 years. So there's nowhere where he particularly goes, or the senior staff go to meet and discuss things. It's all done from home, which again, there's nothing necessarily illegal with that. But there is somewhere, because he does mention in one of these articles, maybe it's not this one, maybe it's the next one. Nope. I can't find where it must be in this one. So there's a company called Binance Global Holdings, and they've asked where your headquarters are, and he says that they will let us know in the future, but they haven't let us know yet. And it's just that kind of stuff just doesn't come across as particularly, 1, transparent, fine, but 2, it just feels like because you're hiding information like that, you're probably up to something that you shouldn't be. Now, I'm not saying that anything that they're particularly doing is illegal, because I have absolutely no idea. And they operate in so many different states that, how would we know? But it just sort of goes back to the CFTC's case that, they are willingly, what's the term they use? It's right back at the top. a willful evasion. That they are, not providing information in a transparent manner. And I get that. That's not necessarily FUD. It's just the truth that's out there. So, we need to understand it. And there's all these different companies. And this one, I got this one up. Bitcoin Holdings, wasn't that one? Which one was it? I won't bother going through it. But there was loads of different companies where you can't actually find out where they're particularly based. And it's like, we've got shells of shells of shells. Which again, I understand corporate structure. That's how they can work. But usually you can follow the chain and find where that is. But not right now. So anyway, that's kind of it in terms of the news stuff. A lot of news broke. We never really got any of the answers for that. So there's still that level of uncertainty with where it goes. So we need to monitor that. We need to necessarily be mindful about what that might mean for the markets, but also just from a regulatory point of view. We've got some pretty big FUD around Binance. Is it going to be a run? I've still got money on Binance at the moment because I've got open orders there. So I'm not saying you need to take your money off or anything like that. You just do what you feel is right to do. If you're not necessarily trading, perhaps you no need to have it on there. I'm not moving it yet because all we've got is effectively one side of a story. And if things change, I will obviously move from it. Just have a look, see if there's anything there. Oops, but yep. And the XRP maxis are freaking out over it. They are, but I'm going to talk about XRP later because that one's had a pretty decent rise. CZ did release an official statement earlier today. Do you know what? I did see it. I just didn't tag it in here. But you're right, saying that it was, full of crap. And it may well be. We need to see what's in these messages and the validity of it. I know what I was going to show you. That was it. Sorry, I will do it. When I'm talking about Binance and the different things, when you see who is named in this, so the defendants, we've got CZ, Binance Holding Limited, Binance Holding IE, Binance Services Holding Limited, Samuel Lim. There's loads of these different other entities, Binance UAB, Merit Peak Limited, Sigma Chain, BAM Trading Services. These are all different companies that are registered in different countries that are either directly or indirectly owned by CZ. So, I just remembered that's where all that was. So it just seems like a very complex structure, which of course you'd expect it to be. But you'd like to think that we would be able to understand who they are, even if we didn't understand it. Okay, I'm going to move on from there, unless anyone's got any questions about any of that. No, okay. Right. So, I think what we'll do, we will quickly talk. I'll break some of the charting up. We'll talk about one of the things one of the questions I was asked. Then we'll do the research token. Then we'll go into another question we asked. And then we'll look at some price action. So, two people actually asked me about this next thing, both today, both within 5 minutes of each other. So interesting that. Sean and Darren both asked me if I could explain where they can find vector candles. I think you probably heard me talking about vector candles. You may have seen them on my charts. And so I'm just going to really show you where they are. I'm going to give you a 30-second spiel on what a vector candle is. I'm not here to talk about how necessarily to trade them. I'm going to show you a video, the first video I ever saw on vector candles. Feel free to watch that. It gives you a little bit more information. Again, doesn't really tell you how to trade them, but it's worth having a look. Now, the indicators I use are all, well, not all of them are free, but the ones to show you vector candles, they are free. So, you can find them on TradingView, and we'll go through where to do that. But in terms of vector candles, let's just take it back really simple first and just talk about candlesticks and how candlesticks are formed. You might be thinking, bloody hell, Harry, we're not that thick. But really basically, and as you can see right and smack in the middle, candlestick 101. So if you see the conventional view on candlesticks, right? A green candle, price is moving up, buyers are in control, it's a bullish place to be. And then red candles is the exact opposite. Sellers are in control, price is going down, so it's a bearish place to be. Well, if you're using vector candles, you're probably believing in the market maker mentality, because this is really what vector candles are for. And actually, the market maker vector mentality will tell you need to throw that mindset out. That's absolute utter bollocks. We're just going to delete that because we don't need it. You need to look at it in completely the opposite way. And what the market maker way of thinking is actually, you seeing vector candles going up, market maker is selling into these. They're creating sells, And then red candles is they are they are buying into those. So how does that work and why does it mean anything? I talked about this back in January when we talked about the Wyckoff strategy. So I'm not going to go through it in that much detail now. But obviously, we're in a two-way market. Anytime you ever want to buy anything, there needs to be a seller on the other side of it. Now, when we're talking about market makers, we're not talking about spot trading. We're talking about perpetual trading. So every time you want to take out a long, someone has to take out that short against you. Now, if there isn't a retail sucker to do it, then someone needs to provide that liquidity. And that's where the market maker comes in. Now, they're not trading with leverage. They're not, if you put 100x in, they're not going 100x the other way. They're just providing the opposite side of that. So how does it work for them? Well, they see price moving up, these green candles, and they start building shorts, okay? Because they want to short the top and then reverse it, okay, and bring it back down. So what are they doing? Every time they place a short, someone needs to buy. That's you taking out that long. They can drive that price up. Now, they're not worried about getting liquidated because they're just setting it in for liquidity. Okay, so they can take it all the way up if they need to, but obviously, they want to make money. They can't leave anything exposed for too long because that ties up their liquidity. They may not get liquidated, but it ties up their liquidity. And so they're just interested in the volatility. So they're moving price up and down. And what the vector candle is doing is the vector candle is showing us increased volume over a given price, over a given time period. And then that is represented in a particular color. And from that, we can understand what the market maker is particularly doing. And if we understand what the market maker is doing, then we can play along with them and not get caught out. And we can benefit because we understand that they do things in a set way. So if we know where they are in that particular pattern stage, then we can manipulate it that way. That's the whole premise behind it. I've been talking about this for 6 months and I've barely scratched the surface. I do not feel comfortable enough or confident enough to really go through the procedure. But in terms of the candles, or how you bring them on the chart, what you do is you'd go to indicators, so on TradingView, and then the one that I use is imbalance PVSRA, and that stands for PVSRA stands for price, volume, support, and resistance analysis, and that's it. That's all it is. So you select that one. I've obviously already got it selected up here. Just unmute it. Suddenly your charts are going to look like that, which all the colors that you had for your candles have completely gone. Now, there is something else you can do with that, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, but there is another thing that I use down at the bottom, and that is called the PVSRA _ VS. So again, just PVSRA. If it is volume, you click on that bad boy, and then once you do it, it's down here, and I'll underscore it there. So this is what you will have probably seen on my charts. You might have seen a little bit more as well, but this is the raw basic form. So now we can see that we've got these volume candles. And what I normally do is, because when I'm doing market maker, I use perpetual charts because they're not trading spot. So it doesn't necessarily matter for the example, but if you are going to use it and you want to understand it, it's better using perp charts. Now, I typically would actually use Binance because I think that's where the majority of the volume is, but whichever one you feel comfortable with. It's probably going to give you a more accurate price. But what we can see is we can see these vector candles. But the real question is, well, what are they? How are they set up? And what is it actually showing? So we'll have a look into settings in a second, but I've written it down here. So you get 4 different colors. You've got green, red, blue, and purple. I don't know what that is. I'm not very good at colors. Purple. That's what I've called it. And what they're showing is a green candle is showing greater than 200% of volume. It turns into a green candle. Red candle is obviously 200% of a bearish volume. Blue candle is 150. Purple candle is 150 as well. So blue is tied to green, and purple is tied to red. Now, why is that important? Because you can see at what stage potentially the market maker is at, how many rises they're doing, and where the volume is coming from. But it also gives you a really good visualization of where they are. Because what you got to remember, as I said, so we see 2 huge red candles here. We might think, well, the market's dropping. We need to start to do some shorts ourselves. But you got to remember the market maker He's driving the price down, but he is buying into this. So he is longing here. So at some stage, he needs to realize these. And that's why what you normally see is the Bart Simpson patterns, or you see these W formations, double tops, or whatever. You then superimpose the vector candles on there. You'll actually see that a lot of, most vector candles are recovered. So we had red vector candle here. This was initially recovered by this green vector candle, but it wasn't fully recovered. We went sideways for a bit, inducing people to think we might drop further. So retail are putting more and more shorts in, and then ultimately price rips back up, cleans out those two vector candles. I mean, on the way up, it forms its own vector candles, which is absolutely fine. And then price continues, and we see these rises and falls. Red candles down here, recovered by green candles. Red candle down there, recovered by green, fallen back down. It's pretty much taken out, but this vector candle cleared that remaining little bit there. What you can see next to any active vector candles, though, is a shaded box. Now, this shaded box is represented unrecovered or imbalances within vector candles. So these are vector candles that haven't actually been reclaimed yet. And what you can notice if you look very carefully is it's only the body of the candle. So every time a wick eats into it, it shortens the box, or it squeezes the box ever so often. So the box is just that size. And then there's a little line that's in the middle of it, and that shows you the 50% of what is left of the box. And again, if you follow the market maker strategy, then 50% are quite important. So actually, what we can see, this on the daily chart, you drop it down to any other time frame, these vector candles are going to change, because it's all based on the volume, which we'll go down and talk about in a minute. But what we can actually see is we have got some green vector candles that still need to be recovered. Okay, so remember, price has shot up. What has the market maker done? They've been setting their shorts in here. Okay, so everyone's been getting super, super excited. They've been longing it with the market. Market maker's got some shorts. So they are imbalanced at the moment. They are still on their books, and they're going to, at some stage, need to recover them, or at least attempt to move the price to recover them. So it doesn't mean that the price is going to immediately fall down there. Remember, they are not playing with liquidity, with leverage. So they can hold these for as long as they need to hold them for. But these are generally targets that we may look to eye up. And then you've seen me use high block, and you've seen me use other charts, and they kind of tie in with liquidation levels. And I think 23,200 is an area that I'm looking at, which is pretty much the 50% recovery of this one vector candle. So we'd be certainly looking there. Price may then move up before coming back down, and having to have a look at some of these other ones. But you kind of get a feel now for at least what is on the chart. It may look like some of my candles have disappeared. I think it's just the overlay of how this works, because there's white candles as well. White and grey are basically just normal volume behavior. Just sometimes when I hold it over these boxes, the white ones disappear, so you only see the grey. But you can see that the predominant vector ones remain there. The only other thing to really talk about is this down here, which is just a volume bars representation of the vector candles. So all that information that turned that into a vector candle is written in here. And actually, this is probably something that you're not necessarily aware of, but even if you had just ordinary volume up, every time you hold, if you look at this number on the right-hand side, it's constantly changing over each of the different bars. And that's because it's showing a visualization, a representation of all of the different changes, ticks, orders, confirmed orders or whatever, approved orders, sales, longs, that have gone on during that particular time period. So we can kind of see, where volume's low, it's the figure's low. When we see a huge number, we can see actually in that day, we had on this particular Bitstamp chart, 12,000, just over 12,000 was registered. So a significant amount of volume. That is a large drop, and also it was above 200% of the average of the preceding stuff. So it turned red. So that's useful to have. It just gives you another visual representation of how volume is doing and driving those prices up. And the reason you want to know that is because actually these purple and blue do play an important role, because depending on where they start in the chart, they will either tell you something is about to happen, it's about to speed up, or it's going to slow down. And this is a great example down here. So we've had price moving down aggressively over a couple of days, volume above 200%. And then we had price, if you remember, that was the Friday after the banking crisis, and we had that reversal. And then the next day we had a blue. Now remember, blue is associated with what retail would think is a bullish market, we know is market makers are actually putting in their shorts, but we're actually starting to see the volume suddenly shift from them picking up or selling their longs, and now they're starting to place their shorts. So we're seeing that reversal come through, and we're seeing it follow the through there. So it started off at 150, and then the pace increased to above 200%. We see that over the next 3 days. Now, I'm trying to find an example of where you would see that slowing down. So I suppose this is an example of it. So we go back here, we had the red drop it down, bit of recovery, we had another vector candle, but it wasn't as fast, so it's starting to slow down. Now, whatever happened, we actually saw that there was another one there, so it didn't necessarily work out how we thought it was going to work out. Of course, no strategy ever works out 100% of the time, but we can start to take information and understand where the market maker may be. So, we've seen them do their rises up here, so we've done our shorts. We've started to see that the volume started to drop off, and it started to tab it down. We may be in a position to short it ourselves because we know that's what the market maker is. He's going to be building longs to a lower price so we can get a bottom, so we can ride that short down. Well, that might then give us a way. He's slowing down here. We might be looking to take profit. One of the guys that I watch would say, pay yourself. And so these can be used, both the purple and the blues can be used as good indicators. If you are particularly in a trade and you're using this strategy as an ideal opportunity to pay yourself to take some profits. Now, I don't use this on its own. I don't have time to go through it all, but trust me, I use EMAs as well. So you need to understand that. Now, if you want to understand it more, you can try and watch this back and watch me bumble my way through it, or you can have a look at this video. I'll post this video in there. It's from Traders Reality. What are vector candles in Bitcoin? It's about a year old, but it is completely valid. You just have to pinch yourself because he's talking about prices in around 45,000. They were the days. So yeah, well worth a watch there, try and understand it. You can follow the links at the end, and you can get a few other free sort of free indicators on here, which will show you other things that you can use. I don't have time to necessarily run through those, but Sean and Darren, hopefully that's at least explained where you can find them, which was the first easy part. I think giving you a very brief understanding of what they are. Just have a look. Cool. I was wanting to always talks about them. Who are the market makers? Exchanges? Not necessarily. So I'll give you a prime example. Tommy B, Alameda Research. They were a market maker. Whether or not the likes of Vanguard and BlackRock, I don't necessarily know who they are. They don't particularly advertise themselves. But Alameda Research used to be one of the biggest. Now, this, I try not to, this isn't a new strategy solely for crypto. This is something that is done in Forex and other commodity tradings, etc. And it's just been brought over to crypto. Crypto is a much smaller market. So, just because people know about this doesn't mean it's going to dry up anytime soon. If it works in the other markets, traditional finance, it's certainly going to continue to work there. It's definitely picking up in popularity, and I highly recommend you have a look at the Wyckoff method. It's based on that, but it isn't that. So don't just think just understanding that is what it is. Citadel, yep, Tim V's mentioned there. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, maybe exchanges do to some degree. Someone as big as Binance potentially, but generally, as Rupert's gone in, they just facilitate the trades. It's companies, as I mentioned, like BlackRock, etc. So yeah. Okay, right. Let's have a drink first because I'm absolutely thirsty as anything, and then let's talk about Akash, and then we'll come talk about some of the other stuff a little bit later on. I'll just bring it up. Okay, so this was requested by Bart initially, and I think Tommy B asked about it last week. At least asked if I had spoken about it. So. I've got a script as I always do. I've got some notes as I always do. As I said, I'm going to sort of run through this a little bit more as if I'm just reading it verbatim because I've got plenty more to talk about. Tommy B is Bart. Right, there we go. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tommy B. Okay, so what is Akash? So effectively, Akash is a decentralized cloud computing platform. Now, if that sounds familiar, you may have heard of Amazon's version of that, which is AWS. Obviously, that is centralized. So this is a decentralized version of that, and effectively utilizing blockchain technology to to provide a secure and transparent platform. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. For anyone that wants to either deploy or host applications that they've built. The platform is highly scalable. Well, they advertise it as highly scalable, it's efficient, it's flexible. Let's have a look. Yep, a wide range of applications can be run off it, whether that be just from simple websites or to something like complex learning machines, models like that. It's got definitely some things going for it, and I think the absolute biggest thing that's going from it is it's built off the Cosmos blockchain. So those of you that aren't aware of Cosmos, the ticker for that is Atom. So Cosmos is all about interoperability. It's one of the biggest competitors to my favorite, Polkadot. And it provides the interoperability of blockchain networks like what Polkadot is trying to do, and it effectively allows that exchange of value between them, which we covered when we talked about. Did we talk about Glimmer? I can't remember. I think we did. Akash network is a proof of stake model. So when we go to talk about what you can use their token for, one of them is staking. But you can earn rewards from staking, participate in network activities, governance, the usual kind of things. The token, which we'll go on to talk about, is also used as a payment, as they all are. Okay, this is where I definitely need to actually start to talk in some coding language here. So a decentralized marketplace for computing resources. So what do we mean by that? Well, if you've got any, if you're using your computer, but you don't use the full capability of it, like I certainly don't, because I've got a pretty swept up computer that I just use for playing computer games, you can then use this network to free up or allow people to utilize your additional RAM storage space or whatever it is. I did write all this down, but I've gone and lost it because I'm an idiot. Here we go. Yeah. So you can effectively rent out, one of the better term, any unused computer resources, whether that be the CPU, whether it be the RAM, whether it be storage, to anybody or any bidder that particularly wants it, or any company that necessarily wants it. You can host applications in a cost-effective and decentralized manner, because obviously it's off the grid and it can be spread across multiple computers. I think that's all I was going to say there, because I've covered the highly scalable bits. Sorry, go back to where I was, into the coding side of things. The platform supports a wide range of programming languages. This is where I have to read them because I don't know anything about all this stuff. Java, Python, Go, Node.js. I don't know if any of those, I've heard of some of them, but whether or not that makes any difference, it doesn't necessarily. But I suppose it shows that it is very flexible, which is obviously what it's pushing to do. Accessible to developers from very different backgrounds, which again, that's what we want to see. Highly secure, it's got built-in end-to-end encryption, security measures to protect against attacks or against hacks and data breaches. It's got a decentralized and censorship-resistant infrastructure. I'm not necessarily sure what that means, but which means applications that are hosted on the network cannot be taken down or censored by any central authority. How they actually do that, I don't necessarily know. Talk about the native token a little bit later on. Okay, so what, as I said, biggest competitors from a centralized point of view are going to be the likes of Amazon, going to be the likes of Microsoft, going to be the likes of Google, people that allow that centralized cloud storage system. And you think about it, everything that we do, well, not everything, the vast majority of stuff that we do gets stored in a cloud somewhere. And when we think of a cloud, it isn't a physical cloud, is it? It's someone else's computer, whether that be a data bank or, in this instance, a decentralized chain of computers. So, the opportunity that Akash offers, I've got to say, is fantastic. And the way things are going, the lack of trust in things like banks and governments, decentralized, DeFi and decentralized platforms, I think will have their day in the sun again. I really do. And so that does provide a good opportunity for Akash to strive or take advantage of that. The website itself, I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan of this website. And the reason I'm not a fan of this website, which I'll go into a little bit later on, is it lacks information. What's more annoying is that they actually updated the website in January of this year. Now, the prior version of the website had a lot more bars on it and a lot more information. And what's quite annoying is, because I've seen screenshots of it, I can take the web page. If I want to find the roadmap, there is no roadmap on this website anymore. It's gone. If I want to find the white paper, that code there is what it should have been before January 2023. It's not there anymore. You try and type that into the search, it doesn't recognize the words like tokenomics, roadmap, white paper. And for me, especially when I'm trying to learn about a new token, if I can't find that information easily, it is a bit of a red flag for me. And so I do worry about that. In terms of the rest of the website, I mean, yeah, the information's there. It's not particularly eye-catchy. It feels quite heavy on the eyes to read through a lot of that stuff. But it doesn't seem to be updated a lot. And that's what worries me, is we've got this blog section here. But if we go to, like, say, team, for example, I can't find who's in the team. I know the CEO is because he appears on YouTube a lot. I couldn't tell you anyone else about the team because they're not there. So the last update was May 4th, 2022, and then before that, and we go to other, sort of things. Again, we go into testnets. Last update, April 2022. Product, November 2022. We'll get on 6 months before people are actually adding to this. And so for someone that is, focusing on people using a cloud-based system, focusing on, driving that traffic through the internet, I would expect their website to be very swept up, and it isn't. Document section, again, it just feels like every single white paper I've ever written. If any of you ever got into reading the DAOs back in those days, this was the format it was in. I find this read very difficult on the eyes. Okay, I could put it into night mode, and I get that. But again, it's just heavy, very heavy to read. So in terms of a website, I'm not a huge fan of that, unfortunately. Let's have a look at where we are in terms of price. Now, this is not Acash's fault, but the information provided between CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, and Masari is woefully different. And so whilst I am on the CoinMarketCap initially, I would encourage any of you to use CoinGecko for this. But we can see here it's around about, just under 500 in terms of where the token is. It's currently at about 30 cents a token with an all-time high previously of around about $7. So this has had a hell of a fall from grace, and potential, huge potential for that to now. It's been around a while, so it was launched in 2019. So it's seen the bull run into, it says 2020 there, but that's 2021. So this is 2020. It's launched in the end of 2020, and it's seen the bull run in 2021. It's seen the blow off top, although it didn't quite get there, but that's no slight against it because we had the same issue with most altcoins in that November run up as well. And then, from May, it's just been, 40 cents down to 18 cents. It's just been in that range. And obviously it's seen a little bit of a pump there. Market cap's only 35. Actually, I'm going to take it off this one because I don't think that's correct. Market cap is $63 million. It's got a circulating supply of 210 tokens. And if you look here, it says 113. That's a hell of a difference. So that's why I've gone with CoinGecko here, because I do believe this is right. 24-hour trading volume of only 1.3 million. We'll get into that in a little bit of time. And it's got a max supply of 388 million tokens, or a little bit over that. I'll go through all of the competitors, but you're right. There is a few competitors out there you can have a look at. Everything else off here, I will just have a quick check if there's anything. All-time high apparently was actually $8, so it's a 96% drop down from there. It's got its market cap at 380 on here. That's just because it's got more circulating supply, so it's obviously going to have a bigger market cap to drive that through. In terms of, this is just where it is on Masari. So I more and more do I sort of swing towards this. Markets that it's available in. For me, this does let it down a little bit. I think the amount of markets that it is in and the size of the markets that it is in is pretty small, which is why it has, in my opinion, a low trading volume. So we got Qcoin, which I'm not slighting Qcoin. I'm happy to see that it's there because, you know, we saw in the last bull run that most small cap coins, they launch first on the likes of Qcoin because they can't afford the listings on Binance. That's great. Kraken and Crypto.com, they have recently just picked those two up. So that's both, I think, January and February of this year. But the rest of them, as I say, you know, fairly small ones that we don't typically use. And the volume is pretty low. The biggest amount of volume is off AscendX. I've never heard of it. With just over 600,000. And then Hubi, which I have heard of. I do have an account. I just don't personally use. But the rest of it outside of that, very small volume. So if you're going to trade it, you're going to get a bit of slippage there. In terms of its ecosystem, you know, it does have an ecosystem. Obviously, that's what we want to see because we talk about that Akash token. Aside from you staking it and getting interest from that, aside from governance, it is also used as a payment method. So we actually want to see people trading in and around this. I don't necessarily have time to run through each of these different ones, but because I'm not au fait with the Cosmos network, I haven't necessarily heard of many of these or any of them particularly. So I just have to leave it to others to determine if these do there. But the fact that they actually have products working on that, I'll take that as a tick. I don't need that one. Again, the team we can't find. In terms of socials, it's got about 86,000 followers. They're fairly active within their socials. In terms of Discord, I've joined their Discord, and yeah, there's. I think I'm trying to find the numbers of how many there are. Can't see now, top of my head. There's a fair few. Because I couldn't find any information on the website, I reached out on Discord and Telegram. To be fair, I did get responses within about an hour. They told me to go to GitHub. I don't like using GitHub, I'll be honest. They just said you can find all the information there. And so whilst I know the white paper does exist, because I've seen it, it is not here. I have it somewhere. I'm going to bring that up in a second. The fact that you can't find it on the website, I just find increasingly infuriating. Stuff like that, basics that aren't there. And, you know, someone that's not particularly au fait with looking at things like GitHub and trying to find that, you know, it just immediately puts me off wanting to put in the effort to try and find that information. But I will persevere. And where is, excuse me a second, whilst I just try and find the white paper, because it is important to go over that. Resume my journey. Here it is. Okay. So here is the white paper for it's 13 pages long, and it's written, and you know, as a what I like to call a dissertation type style of things. So just fine. You know, sometimes you just have to suck that up, and that's just what it is. Goes for all the definitions. I got nothing necessarily wrong with that. But what do I always look for when I go into this? Tokenomics. That's what I want to know from the white paper. Yeah, I have a bit of a read about that, but I want to have a look at the tokenomics itself. It does talk about the governance and how it's going to be used in terms of for fees, going to be used for settlement of lock-ins and the reserves, how much is going to be released, and how they're going to manage the weight of each of these payments, etc. Fine. But then we get to the tokenomics. And, I mean, bloody hell, I honestly have no idea how they work out the tokenomics. So we're talking about inflation here. I was just looking for a percentage. What is your yearly inflation rate? Instead, I'm met with how other people do it and the formula that they use, and then the formula down here of how Akash are going to do it. I have no idea, honestly. Like, again, I'm not saying that it is not 100% perfect and exactly how everybody else does it, and it's great that they put it out there, but I don't have time to, one, try and understand it, and two, plug the numbers in to work out what it's going to be. So that's kind of frustrating that that's where it is. Especially when you start to think about, we do want to know what emission rates are like, because we need to understand where they are in the cycle of releasing all of their tokens. And so Masari are pretty good at providing that information, and we can now get a little bit of an inkling of where we are with it. So we had 2021. I don't believe this information is correct in here, because I know that the first 100 million were given to the founders and the teams and the VCs, etc. So the first 100 million that's circulating around is locked up by them. I don't have a vesting schedule, can't find a vesting schedule for how long that's locked up for and when they're dumping it. But we can see that when it started going live, we do have an emissions, but then we have these step emissions. And again, I don't know what that step emission necessarily is and how that's worked out. Maybe that's within the formula, but I then have to now take that into consideration because we're only, about halfway, just over halfway of the tokens being released. Now, they have been released pretty darn quickly, don't get me wrong, to get to the halfway. But actually, when you think about it, first 100 were tied up with the 400. We've had another 100. So we've had 25% of what is available to be released in the last 2 years. But I want to know what the rest of the token emissions are going to be. And I can't easily find that. So that's, again, a bit disappointing. In terms of when I'm looking at a token, especially one I've never heard of, I'll stick my hand up and I'll be like, right, I will run a search engine through Google, through YouTube, and through Twitter because I need to find out what it is so I can explain it to you guys. And I've got to be honest that the amount of interest in terms of videos or articles recently about Acash is pretty limited. Now we're in a bear market, so I completely get that necessarily. It's one of 23,000 tokens that are out there. And it's kind of sitting middle of the range. So, why necessarily would? But what was interesting is in the beginning of 2021, there was a lot of videos about this. Coin Bureau even started talking about it. He's a big fan of Cosmos, so it came out there. A few other big channels at least reference it. There was an Altcoin Daily reference within that as well. So it was good to see, and it was starting to get pushed. But actually, recently, we're not seeing any of that. And I really struggled to find any recent information on that. Now, that is not discrediting the project at all. That just, it means that when I watch or read any information about it, I have to take it with a grain of salt because things move on. Hence, when I was looking at videos and tweets posting pictures of the website and I actually looked at the website itself, it was completely different. So, that's just for me is something that I just look at is there a particular interest? I'm not talking about moon boy interest, people shilling it. I'm just talking about people generally making videos. I don't care if it's only had 5 views. Someone taken the time to be bothered to make a video. And unfortunately, I might be able to find 10 videos in the last 6 months. But compared to other projects that I look at, that dwarfs. Sorry, it doesn't dwarf. It's the opposite of that. That's tiny compared to the others. So is there really that interest within that? I'm not necessarily sure. Talked about the website, talked about the markets. User base. I want to know, is this thing growing? And it's kind of hard to work out if it is growing. Just take a research. I think this is it. So I've got a bit of information on here. Average block time 6 seconds, which is quite interesting. But what I was hoping to see is whether or not I could see a chart to just show how many users there are. I've gone through all these settings. I couldn't necessarily find one. Again, doesn't necessarily mean that that's an issue. But we can see the inflation rate is approximately 8%, but that's actually changed from today. Because it was a little bit less than that earlier, but that could just fluctuate. The APR here is just under 12. What's interesting is that we've actually, of the 211 million that's in circulating, about 143 are actually locked up. So again, it adds to that low level of liquidity compared to what's out there, which is maybe why we don't have it on any real big exchanges at the moment. Because obviously, for it to be listed on an exchange, they need to have the tokens to be able to sell it. So yeah. I think I'll probably try and summarize it now, but in my honest opinion, this could be what I'm going to pass on this one. I was going to show you its competitors, wasn't I? So let's just find that first. So if we just put it in order, so this is a shared computer one. So there it is, Acash. So we've got Kudos, we've got Render, which someone mentioned, Anchor Protocol is there as well. Golem's there. I think someone mentioned that in chat. So it's it's not the biggest market that's out there, but there's some pretty decent ones out there that I've certainly heard of above this one here. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is not going to be a good project. For me, I really do believe that this sector is a big one, but right now, am I interested in it I'm trying to keep a small amount of cryptos, sub 15. Is it worth me allocating some of this? Not necessarily yet. It's been bleeding. I think, it's likely it'll bleed a little bit more. And if I start to see things pick up, then maybe I would get interested in it. I do think the sector that it's working in, I think that'll be a really big sector. It's got a lot of big competition against centralized versions of this. As I said, 3 biggest companies in the world of Amazon, Google, and Microsoft pretty much are its main competitors, but they're all centralized. So, I think there is definitely a shift in the narrative that could help push that along. But I'm not going to be investing in this one. Just think for me personally, the risk to reward just isn't necessarily there. I had some reservations straight off the bat with the website because I can't find information, and that's the one thing that frustrates me, because I go away from being able to understand something as much as I should do to just effectively guessing and filling in the gaps, and then I'm just going with hopium then. So yeah, that's where I am with that one, Tommy. I will. It's on my charts now, so I'm certainly going to be watching it, but I'm not utilizing any remaining funds that I have at this particular moment for it. I hope that was informative. I said I was going to stick to the script, and I didn't, because I just can't. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have a drink. As always, all this information I will put on there so you can have a look at it yourself and try and digest it a little bit better. I'll put some of the videos that I watched as well. A bit dated, but the CEO is very passionate about it. He obviously clearly knows his stuff. He built some software that was actually bought by Google. So he's got to know what he's talking about from a sort of this engineering kind of coding kind of point of view. And that's good to see. Yeah, finish on a high. Okay. Right, let's get everything else up. Right, before we go into talk about BTC price action, I was asked by a couple of people to explain a post that Bijan put in Discord. He linked a video from a YouTuber who created a dominant indicator. And he's been very successful with that. He's kind of expanded what it is. It's been, people have started to watch it. I mean, in our group here, and some people have asked me to kind of explain how it works and what it is. So who am I talking about? It's this guy here, Market Mobster. He actually used to be in the Air Force, not at the same time as Simon and I. A little bit after, he was a RAF police, I believe. Full disclosure, I am in his group, so I do know this guy. Very active, a bit of an arsehole sometimes, but he means it in a nice way. And I have used a version of what he's talking about in the past. So I didn't watch the video at the time that Bijan put it out, but I have watched it few times now. I've watched it about 4 times today just to make sure I understand what he's trying to say. But for those who haven't seen it, I'll post this in there. Bijan's already posted it. It's basically a free indicator, and he's just explaining how he used it to get out of the market and then back in the market. And oops, that's not what I want to do. How can I scroll across? Where is it? It's about 6 minutes. Where? Here we go. Look at that. Stopped it perfectly. So this is why this guy got on my radar. 1st of November. Remember, the all-time high was around about either the 1st or the 8th. I can't remember. This is the tweet he sent out. Start selling. Everyone, including me, took the piss. But actually, within 6 weeks, I knew he was right. And then that's when he put, just sold everything, goodbye crypto. I personally moved in from altcoins mainly into DAOs, which was a downfall there. But, actually it put me on his radar of, how did this guy get to understand what he got to understand? And also at the back end of last year, he started buying at the December lows. And again, how did he do it? This video, he's claiming it's this indicator that gave him an indication as how to do it. So of course, it's gonna be intriguing. This guy's got the golden ticket. So here we go. For the eagle eye who watch every week, you may have seen me flick on this chart, and what we're looking at is this bit on the top. Now, this is effectively his old indicator. This is the one that you have to build yourself. His new indicator, he's got someone to code it up for him. But this is what I have previously used. And this is what gave me some clarity at the start of the year. So let me just change this over to that and that. Okay. So we're going to look at the top bit at the moment. Ignore BTC price at the bottom. Just try and explain what we've got here. Now, what he's talking about is he is talking about a stablecoin dominance indicator. What he is alleging is that by understanding how much stablecoins in the market is, you can understand where sentiment is and also where you should be positioning yourself. So if sentiment, I'll go through what the lines are in a moment, but the important thing is what's on the right hand side, because one, it's a percentage, and two, it's inverted. Okay, so actually down. What we're saying is we've got these lines. The green line's the one you're really looking for. The blue line, we'll go through what they are in a minute. Don't fret. Is what I use for a crossover, and then this black line, he actually hides it. I keep it on there just very faintly. And what he is saying is, if this indication, if this line representation is heading down, that is good for the markets. That means that BTC and other altcoins will be increasing in price because the amount of stable coins that's going around is reducing. Now, yes, some of them could be going to fiat, but generally people move from stable coins to crypto assets. So the fact there's not as many stable coins going around means that people are spending that on altcoins or BTC. And what he has here is I built it on USDT, USDC, and DAI. Now, they're basically all the ones you could get the dominance, because what you need is a dominance. And don't forget, although this looks like an RSI, that's only because of how I've interpreted this. So what I had to go and do was I went into settings to style, and you can have them as candles. Yeah, and that'll look familiar to you, wouldn't it? But I've chosen to have that just represented as a line, okay? So instead of seeing dominance represented as candles, which is what we know and love, I put it as a line, but the data within it is still as if it was a candle. So this isn't showing necessarily relative strength. This is a dominance one. That's it. So, that's just to clear that up. I don't think it explains it in the video. In terms of the EMAs, I've got two on there. I've got one at 55, which we can see is the blue line. And I got one, I think it's at 8. I'm not sure. 8. Yes, it is. And this is the green one. Now, in the video, he says you can tweak them however you want to do. And yes, by all means, you can. How I used it, though, is on high time frames. So I'm on the 3-day chart at the moment. What I was looking for was that cross. It was a cross over the 55. Now, the 8's a bit too close there, you may not know. But what we had is, let's shrink this down because it's getting in the way now. But during the whole of the bear market, we saw people were fleeing to stablecoins. So the dominance of stablecoins was increasing. And yes, it came back and touched and retested this 55. It hadn't broke it and it hadn't broken trend. And so it carried on above it. So that's what he was doing. When it then, broke below it, he felt confident enough to move in. Now, he recommends that you don't just do this on your own. You need to use other TA around there. But what he was suggesting was this break here was the first clue that we actually might be seeing the end of the bull run. Now it came back up. He started buying in and around here. He moved the rest of his money in after this cross had occurred. So when this cross occurred, this was about when I started moving in. Tuesday the 10th, I think it was a week before, or maybe that was the first Avenger call. If you remember, I sort of told everybody that I'd changed my mindset on things. I started to try and look at a bullish narrative. And this was one of the indicators that I was like, maybe actually I need to start moving in. We've had a break of trend in terms of we'd formed that higher high. We'd broken through that there. And so it felt like it was the right time to start moving in. And we've started to see that. And, we had a potential. This broke through. That this actually could have been reversed. But actually, when it broke through, we thought we were going to form that lower low, didn't we? Thought, here we go, we've broken trend again. But actually, this candle bounced it back up. There's a gap there, but if that gap wasn't there, it actually cleared this high. So trend wasn't broken. So at the moment, he's suggesting with his indicator, that stablecoin dominance is continuing to fall, that means that it's likely that we're still going to continue to see whether it's a micro bull season or a full-fledged bull season. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so that's how it was done in the past. And then he's come along with this indicator. He's effectively just coded that up. Someone else has for him. And they look pretty similar, don't they? But they're not exactly. If I open this up, see, so remember I had an 8. Well, he's moved it to a 21. And I think that's probably a better thing to do. I just realized this might be incredibly bright for everyone because it's white on white. But so he's now got a 21 and then he's got the trend at 55, which is what we had before. I've just done the colors the same as the previous one, so you can see that see that better. So I'm trying to say the same. I don't know why I've lost the words. But yeah, they reflect the same. But the lines are going to be slightly different. So again, he's done it on BTC, and if we just if we just give it a little bit of kudos and we go back, and the reason I've chosen this particular chart is if you're going to use it, it can't be a USD chart. It has to be a USDT or a USDC or a DAI chart, okay? Because otherwise the coding in the indicator doesn't necessarily work. So I was trying to find a Bitcoin chart had sufficient history. Go back to that. And of course, obviously, when we get a bit before then, can I do on the daily then? I think we probably can. We'll have the information. Obviously, didn't have enough data. The previous one only goes back to 2019. I don't know what's wrong with his coding. I'm going to put it back on the 3-day. Excuse me while we do that. So we'll have a look at what this happened and why he's so positive on it. He goes through it, and I'll also say, I've watched the video a few times. I think he actually explains it very well. It's just probably difficult to understand the first time because if any of you have ever recorded something live, sometimes your mouth does something that your brain doesn't want to. And I just get the feeling that he says a few words and a few things like backtesting isn't relevant and all that kind of stuff. Well, it is relevant. He can't backtest it because it doesn't go back far enough. And he is an advocate for using this on the higher time frames. So, I've just ignored that, statements like that. He then says you can change the EMAs if you want to. Well, why build something? Stick with what works for him. So I'm ignoring a lot of those sort of superfluous comments, like what I've just gone and done for the last 30 seconds, and just looked at the actual content of what he says. So he actually does explain it very well. But we can sort of see, we had the June run up to 14,000, but then we lost it. And can you see what's happened? We've lost it. Is that the green has broken above this 55 again. So 21, so the dominance is rising in stable coins and it's staying above the 55. So if the dominance is rising, that's bad for the market, and it means that prices are going to go down. It's above there and it's continuing, and we can see the prices go down. And then we had the COVID blip, which I think probably skewed his data a little bit here. But then we went through and actually, wait a second. I'm telling you that wrong because oh yeah, no, I'm right. Sorry, apologies there. And then we get into 2021 and the big bull. I'm not right. I don't know why this doesn't work. This is not the same as that. This is actually the opposite. So I'm going to have to just double check that in a moment. So what we're going to see is above the blue line, the market is falling. It's above the blue line here. I suppose it was just stabilizing. It hadn't done anything, has it? Now that I've actually, it's not on the logarithmic, so it has just moved there. Okay. And then the bull run starts. Okay, I was right. Thank God. We start to see the stables start to drop off. And you got to remember back here in 2021, USDT was only, say, 30 billion, not the 84 billion we got at the height of it. So, but as that starts to grow, we can see the price going up. Then the market capitulated on the 19th of May, I think it was, or the 12th of May. We break back through there and we can see the summer drop. What he is stresses quite carefully is this, like with anything, you get too far away from an EMA and it normally snaps back. So maybe a good time to enter the market is when it's a suitable distance away. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you any realism on how far it needs to be. So that's just a judgment that you'd have to do using other TA. We can kind of see again, above the blue line, going upwards, bad for the market, prices drop down, breaks back under, we start to see the recovery. And then we have the November blow off, it breaks up, and then we see a drop down there and it stays above it. So it still works exactly as I explained it the first time around. Phew. Where he goes to then talk about it in a bit more detail is he thinks you can use this for altcoins. And this is perhaps where I think we just need to be a little cautious, because this is where I think backtesting would be essential, if I'm perfectly honest. And the reason being is using it as BTC. BTC is the king, you know, it's nearly 50% of the overall market cap. So you can kind of play that sentiment, and then generally you can, you know, roll down that sentiment from BTC to whatever altcoin you necessarily need to be within. But altcoins individually themselves are susceptible to far more external influences. So we've got FUD, we've got hacks, we've got dodgy characters. We've also got that we don't know what they're selling the asset from and into a stable coin for. You know, so why has that dominance suddenly increased? And how do we know what the percentage of the dominance necessarily is in proportion to a stable coin versus that particular asset? I don't know how this is coded, so I can't, you know, hand on heart just go, well, it must offset straight across to it. And we take DOT. It does look like DOT still follows the same pattern, but I probably should have done another one. I just haven't brought them up on here. You know, if DOT suffers a massive hack, you know, it might do something completely different to the rest of the market and skew this over. And it's not necessarily that people rush from DOT into USDT. They might rush from DOT to BTC. And so they don't have that necessarily dominant. So I think that needs a little bit of a pinch of salt in there. If you are going to use it for altcoin trading, I would certainly be using it on the higher time frames. He's very keen to stress that, you know, daily is a minimum. You can go 2, 3, 5 day weekly. If you talks about swing trading, but you know, if there are any swing traders necessarily in here and you want to do it on the 1 hour, I think it's one of those ones where you just have to move so fast, and I don't know how much this data lags. So for me, that's a no. I won't be using that. I'm going to watch it on altcoins. But I'm not necessarily too worried about that at the moment. I still use those similar principles that, you know, just forgetting this dominance at the moment. You know, for me, if I'm trading BTC pairs, I'm more than happy to have a look at just where it is, and I kind of know if dominance is sorry, if candles are down low like this, that's usually a good time to buy, and when candles climb, it's a good time to sell. Now, in theory, that's exactly what this is saying, because what we want is the green line is above the blue. So that normally means that if we were using USD, that would be the time to be staying in USD. Well, this is the time to stay in BTC, and then when it starts to cut back down, that's when you swap into the asset, you ride for it to go down there, and then you sell, because once the price goes down or the line goes down, that's good for the market. Good for the market in this instance would be swapping my DOT into BTC. So my DOT would be worth more BTC. Hence why it swaps across there. So I don't know if I've really actually explained that any better. All I would just say is, you know, it is a bit of a clickbait title. I can say that I know that he did both of those things, but doing something twice doesn't necessarily mean that you've got the golden ticket. So we just need to monitor it. It's an indicator that I have on my charts. It's an indicator I've used in the past, and I'm more than happy to trial it. And, you know, you'll be sure when we're in the next bull run and I'm seeing it on the weekly, this is looking like it's crossing over and we may be there, and I will have to reevaluate whatever my mindset currently is at that time. And I think this would be a good tool to at least start having the conversation, asking the question. I'm just hesitant to use it on individual altcoins at the moment. Maybe I just need to sort of explore and understand that with the guy who actually created the coding. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Launch. Anyone on RT have a maths PhD? Told us with that, I know, yeah. Tim's wife, Australian maths champion. Good GCSEs. Right, get on the call. Okay. Near update the website recently. Looks sexy. I'll definitely take that out. Appreciate your time on that. Well, thanks, Bart. I mean, I enjoy looking at those kind of things, whether or not, you know, I like them. You know, it's just personal choice. Brian, is it worth joining the community? I'll be honest. Look, I'm not here to sell anybody's community, especially on a live call. You know, have a look yourself with what you like. He does a lot of free stuff on YouTube, watch his videos. If you like what he puts out, then perhaps have a look at that. Okay. Oh, just don't know why I have this up. Don't need that one. For those of you that are interested in trying to potentially understand it a little bit better, and you don't like how he says things, if you go onto TradingView and search Crypto Mobster, you'll find his simple dominance momentum indicator, and it actually talks about it. So you can have a read of it. But that's what you need to remember. The golden rule for stablecoin dominance: down equals good, up equals bad. Or, as he said, it just invert the indicator if you can't get your head around that. Because remember, it's stablecoin dominance. That's what we're looking at. What is the percentage of stablecoins in the market against a particular asset? Down is good. The lower the amount of stablecoin dominance there is, more money must be in the market. Therefore, more money is, in theory, within whatever coin you're looking at. Up is bad because more people are in stablecoins than the coin you're talking about. It's probably not a good thing for the price. Okay, I think we spent enough time on that one. The bulk of his stuff is available in the internet. If you follow him on Twitter, he usually tells you fully when he's in and out. There you go. Okay. Right. There's one thing that I think is worth having to talk about. Actually, I haven't got the chart up ready for me yet, though. Why didn't that load? I am never good when my internet doesn't want to load. I'm like, too many charts open for you to be broken. Come on, please. Okay. At least I'm still live. Nothing else. It looks like TradingView is crashing on me, which is never good. Oh, here we go. We're here. That one. Remember which one it is. Which I have my 4 years. Here we go. This is the one I wanted. So, most of you know I'm still an advocate of the 4 year cycle, and in my view, is that we go through effectively 3 years, in inverted commas, of a bull run, and then a year of a bear market. And that bull run is split up between sort of like a accumulation phase leading up to the halvening, and then after the halvening, that explosion up into a blow off top, and then a market correction. And that's slightly different to Syme. Syme's sort of more of the opinion that the next bull run will only come after regulation. I just think people say that all the time. I've said that for the last 2 halvenings. Regulation will come when it comes. I think it's more about scarcity. And so I want to talk about the halvening because I haven't altered this. But we can see, it's 13 bars, it's 396 days, just under 4 days there. And it's bang on again. We may have found our bottom. We certainly reacted well off that. Similar to what happened here, we had that accumulation phase where we then had that rally up, then the correction, retesting the lows into the halvening, explosion. And maybe, because it happens quite quickly after the potential bottom, the 400 days. That's what we're going into at the moment. Maybe we are starting to see a bit of a rally up. Now, if we get that's not what I want. What happened from this bottom to this top was 300%, so it's a 3x. From there, where are we at the moment? We're not at a 3x yet, definitely not. But we have had just about doubled our money in terms of bottom to top. I know it's not particularly accurate. So maybe we are starting to see that uptick there. And, at some stage we'll run out of steam. We'll have that correction over the following months, and then we'll have that kick off there. And if any of you are thinking, well, that's miles away, we don't. Actually, it isn't. This is the Bitcoin halvening clock. It's the 28th of March today. The current projections suggest that the Bitcoin halvening is in a year's time. 1 year. Now, I should be clear that this is just a forecast, and it depends on block times. And we're actually looking for a block high of 840,000. And in the couple of times that I've had this on my screen today, it's changed from the 29th to the 1st of April. And people are still predicting it could be anywhere from March until May 2024. So, but I looked at the Bitcoin halvening clock today, and I was pretty surprised to see that it is a year tomorrow. Now it's a leap year next year, so it's not 365 days, it's 366. Technically 367 if you still include today. away. And that's not that far when you think about it. It really isn't. So going back to whatever chart I had up that I can't find anymore, we need to start thinking, because, we have that period round about a year and what was that? A year and 3 months, a year and 4 months. Well, these are monthly candles here. We've already had 3 of those. So we've got that year we talked about. So we've got 12 more candles to go, up and back down. Before you know it, we're going to be at that halvening, and we can see a couple of months leading into it. Happened down here as well. Excuse me, I just sniffed on screen. Apologies there. That explosion that goes through into it now is a little bit different in the early days. And I think, we're still at 25 BTC. The thing it's still very new, so that one does seem very extreme there. But I'm not really one that always signs up into fractals, and I'm not necessarily saying it's going to repeat the exact amount of candles over the exact amount of time. I'm just trying to remind you that 12 months is not that far away. We've been through the pain of the bear market, which was longer than that. That was 14 months, and all-time high. Feels like yesterday still. And so we just need to be mindful that actually there's some pretty big events on the horizon. I mean, we've not even talked about Shanghai Unlock, which is in a couple of weeks' time. There's a big date for Ethereum. We've got SEC announcements potentially on securities against Ripple, what that might do for Ethereum and everything else. But in terms of the king, it's not far away. And so it's just a little polite reminder that, where do you need to be? Where do we see it? Where do we see our portfolios being? Where do we see how far along we are on our education, to our plans, everything else? And unlike me, I get to spend all day doing this. If you don't have that much time, you're going to get a couple of hours a week, and you waste it listening to me. Thank you for your time, obviously. But, that's only 52 of those before the halvening comes around. So you need to probably try and think about, well, what's that actually mean? And yes, it does feel like it's a long way away, but I assure you that will be upon us before you know it. And until this system breaks, I am going to go with after the halvening, we will start to see that stellar rise. And, just to remind you, it was 9,000 to 70,000. So, big rises. This one back here was 600 to 20,000. So, maybe we get back to 23,000 and then we see 120K. I've just pulled those numbers out, so don't anybody assume I'm predicting what they're going to be. But yeah, that context of where we are now, I'm not saying to buy now, I'm saying to have your plan in place. Don't waste a few months and then decide you're going to have a think about it. Have a think about where we are. Do you believe in the 4-year cycle? Do you believe in regulations is what's going to drive it? Do you believe the global recession is going to destroy the financial system as we know it? If it does, then perhaps you need to get into Bitcoin now. But yeah, so it's definitely something to think about. And I think, we need to just have that on the mind. I was quite surprised that it was there. But that's where we are with it. Oh, bloody hell, you've had a lot of comments in here. Okay. Nothing, just 2 people chatting. And I appreciate the chatting. So we close the poll and let's have a look at where people are, and then we'll do price action. And you're not closing. In the poll, there we go. I have a feeling I know who the baddie is. Yeah. Ow, look at that. Guys, how did no one pick me up on the first word of the poll was wrong? How? Who is the worst offender in crypto? Sam Bankman-Fried, yeah, I think we're there with that. Obviously, no real news about him today or this week, which is a bit of a surprise. But I think he's got to be up there with biggest offender. Kwon, I mean, you think about how big that implosion was. And then for those of you that were in this group at the time, it was huge. Some people were obviously caught up in it and lost a lot of money from it. And we had all this to him referring from himself. He was very active on Twitter. False hope, obviously just buying himself time to get whatever documents he needed and get out of there. So, not a particularly nice character. Someone else, I don't know who those are. But it's interesting that people don't think CZ is that bad. Maybe it's just against the amount of those people there. But I don't know. I've just, jury's out for CZ at the moment. He is, he's the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. You don't get to be like that with not having some shark instincts. You got to remember, he's the one that stuck the knife into Sam Bankman-Fried for whatever reason, whether it was worried about competition or whatever. It was his lack of faith in FTT token after the balance sheet was put out. It was, people take his voice with a lot of credibility. He put it out there. He was like, we're selling, and that started the whole house of cards. Now, some people can look at that and say he did a good thing there because FTX were just riding a wave of destruction, and it was going to come falling down at some stage. But, we'll have to just wait and see. I will say that CZ has about as many lives as Bitcoin and USDT, and they have weathered FUD very well. So, maybe he is actually pretty good. Yeah, SPF has a certain place in hell. I agree with that. Can't believe Duke didn't get arrested from Singapore to Montenegro. I heard that when I was reading all of the the Twitter stuff about it, he had set up a company in Croatia within 3 weeks of Terra collapsing. So yeah, over there pretty quickly. Right. Let's have a look at a bit of price action. So BTC, let's just have a quick look at the daily because we're in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment, and we've seen what vector candles may be and all that kind of stuff as well. Fine, what's that? I don't know. But if we just look at very simple price action, we can see, ignore the wicks. We had that climb up to around about 28,500, and you look at where we were in May, just before this. So May, beginning of May was the lunar crash. So that after the lunar crash, where we found our bottom was bang, 28,500. So there's no surprise that we need some volume and some momentum to get through there. And at the moment, it's just not necessarily been there. I need to put some volume on. Let's have a look at volume. I hate these little things in the way. Don't want news. Right events on chart. You can kind of see, yeah, we had great volume getting up there, but it has been dropping off, even though prices initially climbed up. Not when but mention a potential divergence there. But it's no surprise that we just haven't found the strength necessarily to get through. But at the same time, this 26,700, we've had a few decent bounces off that. And okay, we've got a wick there. We've got some previous price action in and around this area, sort of breaks, and we can go across. So from a daily point of view, it's a bit of a dangerous place for us to be in. Not necessarily forming anything that is too discernible at the moment. But if we need to recharge those batteries before climbing back up, I can see a recovery in and around to this area here. So that's sort of 25,000. Now retesting that as support, building that as our baseline for support, and then getting a momentum for the second attempt up there. And it's very similar to what happened at the beginning part of the year in terms of trying to get through 25,000. It took us a couple of attempts. We then retested back down to 20, and up we go. And so from a bigger point of view, maybe that's exactly where we're looking to do. As we break that down through some of the lower time frames and we get onto the 4-hour chart here, maybe we're starting to see a few simplistic basic patterns. Maybe we're seeing double top there, and actually at the moment the battle's on the neckline as to where we're going to go through. And if we do lose it, the distance again there is going to be in and around this level. We're talking about 25,000, coinciding with a lot of price action around here and the price action that we saw in mid-February. So again, some very simplistic TA could suggest that that's where we're leading to. So okay, we need to sort of take that into account as well. I'm going to get rid of this volume because I don't really need it, if I'm honest. Okay. But where's the other picture? Now, I should have loaded up. I haven't loaded up things like high block. But in terms, I'll tell you what. All right, I'll do it. I'm only putting this on here because it has at least. It's going to look a little bit confusing, and I appreciate that. I'll take that on to the 4-hour, and maybe even the daily. I'm really just wanting the EMA, so you can kind of ignore everything else. It's not necessary at the moment. But this blue line here is the 50 EMA. So what we've seen is, beneath it. We break into March, that huge climb up, 28,000, retest, bounce off it, forming the neckline, retest, bounce off it again, forming the end of that there. We've broken under it, but actually, in the last 4 hours, we've climbed over it. So the battle is still in and around this area. And whether or not we're above or below, we need to start seeing a movement and a direction in which way we can go. Now, we've got some other EMAs. We've got 200 EMA down here, which is tying in with 25,000. But if we were to lose that, can we get down and retest this 800 EMA around about 22, tying in with that flat period that we had? I don't think when that was, beginning of March, for the banking crisis. Potentially it's there. Without going and loading up high block, I can tell you that there is long liquidation levels in and around 23,200, 23,700, and I think around about 25,000. So again, key targets that we may particularly be looking to. Now, just because we fall there doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to continue to fall. Just, it's perfectly natural for us to fall back down and still maintain the trend. And actually, we in theory could fall all the way back down to 20,000 and still maintain the trend. So, what I suppose I'm saying is, don't get too greedy once you see the price moving down. Don't rush to buy in either, but have a look at where things are going and where it is. Now, remember what we talked about with the vector candles. If you're a person who believes in the market maker strategy, market maker is going to be buying red candles. So, at some stage he's going to look to try and take profit. I say he, sorry if I offended anyone there. They. But yeah, he is going to look to try and take some profit at some stage. So we will likely see some form of recovery from that there. In terms of some of the other tokens that are out, well, let's get down onto the dominance first. I'm going to turn these off because I don't need them now. Just get rid of that. There we go. So before we have a look at some of the other altcoins, let's have a look at where we are in terms of Bitcoin dominance. We talked about this last week and the week before, 48% being a key level historically. We kind of see the relationship it's had all the way through 2021 and 2022. So again, no necessary surprise that we have lost that. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the battle is over and that we are going to enter into an alt season. So, but we have turned around from that. And today what we've seen is a lot of green, still low figures, not any on my radar that is above 10% at the moment, 9 for XRP. But above 1%, whereas BTC is 0.5% at the moment. So people are seeming to favor an opportunity within altcoins at the moment. And what we want to be watching right now for me is a break and a close below 47%. So pretty close to that already. But if we start to lose that and then start to trend back down, then yeah, it is likely that altcoins are going to see a very healthy climb versus BTC. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And as I say, when you look at Ethereum, the daily charts, it's recovered everything that it lost. Whether you believe it was the Binance FUD or not, caused that yesterday, it's recovered that. Same with DOT, BNB. I doubt that's going to have recovered it yet. BNB had a pretty decent fall yesterday, but it's on the road to recovery. And then I want to have a look at XRP, because XRP is on a bit of a rip at the moment. And I said a couple of weeks ago, I just want to buy a bag in case we start to get an answer. And I've missed it, and I haven't bought anything. And it's a real shame, because we would have been talking about buying in around about, high 30s levels. We're already at 52. But this is what I mean. There was some, I think, just rumors that, we might be getting a verdict sometime soon. So just based off the rumors, so can you imagine the opportunity that it would present if when we do get the verdict and it goes in the favor? That's the risk. It is a gamble, that one. There's no necessary TA for that. It's just, if it goes the right way, there's an opportunity to get in and get out quickly. So yeah, that's one that's just been interesting. It had that pullback, 50% pullback, and then it's just found the strength. It's continuing to go up. It's running into Previous price action at the moment. We had that triple top there and shoulders, whatever you want to look at it, and it collapsed back down. So maybe we might see that. And the only other one that's on my radar at the moment is actually gas BTC, because earlier on today we were down at about 1180, and so we're getting close. I'm getting to the point where maybe I am trying to be a little bit too greedy, but I am wanting to see sub 1150, and ideally 11 is what I'm actually aiming for. So I'm going to wait. But that is moving down the right direction. For those of you that do ontology gas, it's already down. I mean, it's at the lowest it's been in years. So it's kind of already broken that trend. So there's potentially an opportunity now to get it. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't just get down to half again of what it is, because we've seen that down there. But if we were looking at that previous range, which was kind of this, we're below it. So yeah, I'm not playing that one. I'm focusing on BTC gas, to be honest. But I have it on there because I know people are. Okay, let's have a look. Difficult to find much information about the Binance team. It must be owned by Vanguard, maybe. Vanguard is pretty adamant that we're going up more. In terms of BTC dominance, so he's identified 52% as sort of the next launch it off phase, which ties in with it's here, sort of that. That's where he sees it. I mean, in bear markets, we typically do see BTC recover quite significantly. There's a lot more altcoins out there, so getting back to 75-90%, I think is very unlikely. I mean, depending on SEC rulings, obviously. But yeah, if we break this, and I think Ben has probably said that right now this is the door things are knocking on. If that breaks, then it is 52. But if it doesn't break, he doesn't know for certain. I'm sure he was saying it was going to break there too. For me, if it breaks, we're looking probably minimum of 44. But typically in the past, we've seen it back down to 40. So that's just something to be mindful of. In terms of where I actually sit, so I actually sold a little bit of BTC. And not much at all. So I'm probably back to about 60% in the market. I'm just looking to buy and I'm just waiting. If we get down to 25, if not, then it's currently below where we are at the moment. I'm not sure where I'm going to wave the white flag and buy back in. But it just felt right to sell a little bit of it. So I have done. Everything else is bought and staked. Finally got around to staking my NEAR yesterday, which embarrassingly had been sat in its separate wallets for about 3 months, 2-3 months. And it's the easiest thing to stake. So that was a bit stupid on my behalf, but we are with that. So yeah, I think we're kind of there. I realize I've been talking for nearly 2 hours. So I don't know if anyone's got any other questions. If not, then I'll probably knock it on the head, but I'll just give people a bit of a chance. Inundated with XRP. I've never seen an XRP ad on YouTube. You'll have to send me one. I'm intrigued. I get Greg Secker all the time. How many adverts has that guy done? It's like a different one every time. I've now got to the point where I actually watch them because I'm just amazed at how white his teeth are. They're just hypnotizing. But yeah. No more questions from anybody? All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in again. I hope it's at least a little bit informative. I'll post the links to some of those videos that we talked about, and yeah, we can go over some of those. Just one final thing before, well, actually a couple of final things. I've got, I think, about 1 or 2 more research tokens that people have asked about, so I'll cover over the next week or 2. I think what I'm going to do after that is, if no one gives me a research token, I'm going to start going through some of the big boys. So even, what is BTC, Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, XRP? Yes, most of you may know what those are, but some people may not. So there'll always at least be something that we talk about each week. But if there is a particular token you're interested in, please send it across. It's always good to learn about some new ones. And even if you don't like that sector, that particular token, it gives you an idea in the sectors. In terms of trading pubs. I'm assuming there is a trading pub this week. I know there's a cuddle on Saturday, but because it's a smaller version, I've not been told that there won't be a trading pub. So 2 p.m. on Thursday. It is the cuddle this Saturday. So I hope everyone has a great time there. I unfortunately now cannot make it. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great time with that. I'll be back on next week. Obviously, I'll be updating everything in Discord as we go through. One final plea is just if there's anything you want, whether it be how to spice up interactions in Discord or how I run these calls or anything like that, please, feel free to tag me in something. Or if you don't want other people to see it, feel free to drop me a DM. I'm here to just hopefully make your experience a little bit better. I appreciate sometimes it can get a little stale. So, any fresh feedback is always appreciated. Other than that, all that's left to do is say, have a great evening, everybody, and I will speak to you all soon. Cheers now.